let's talk about your facilities and their concerns about their clients' well-being. I mean, I've spoken video to video, peer to peer at an H&I meeting with you, with Ida, you know, and me and Dan did that. And how did you guys discuss that when you go to them in your initial, you know, outreach to them, and you say, all right, what are your concerns when you're talking to them? You say, all right, so what are your concerns immediately when we say all this shit to you? What are your fears? What do you think sounds good? What doesn't sound good? You know, how does that conversation generally go?
Well, it would go, I don't see it as any different to approaching a facility to do a face-to-face H&I. We're basically doing exactly the same thing. You know, it's run the same way. It's 2 speakers for 20 minutes. There's a question and answer time. Yes, our speakers have a clean time requirement. You know, like just last week, and, you know, I don't want to talk out of turn, but we had someone volunteer to do our H&I who has been banned from doing face-to-face H&Is because of her inappropriate behaviour. We had a group conscience, you know, behind the scenes, and we're not willing to do that. You know, like, these things affect NA as a whole, and anyone in this room has that understanding of how important our relationships are. You know, how, you know, they're the foundation of good H&I and good public relations work. So, you know, we do need to utilise the fact that we call them trusted servants. You know, we trust these people. You know, they're called trusted servants because they've earned trust, not because we met some guy 3 days clean and went, oh, you look kind of trustworthy. They're people who've shown themselves, and we choose our speakers, and, you know, we take it as seriously as any other H&I. How we present ourselves to the public is really important. I'd just simply reassure them in that way, you know, that we've got the beauty here, and we've had it actually happen with virtual H&I, where we simply say to a program manager, how about you just attend? Just come as a spectator, you know, and then they get an idea of what we're doing, and they can choose if they do or don't think it's something of value to their facility, you know.
That's that's the first time I've heard that.
There was one thing else that
drop in and listen, you know.
There was one other thing that came up, Redo, was somebody took, because the last couple-minute conversation sort of got a tiny bit off track, where one of the questions was regarding the HIPAA laws, where when you bring an H&I meeting, for example, virtual, and you have to deal with the national HIPAA laws when it comes to the privacy and so forth, and if there's a mechanism in place for the fellowship when presenting information to the institution, how it could be handled that way. And somebody mentioned also in the chat that, and it's important to bring up when it comes to this, if the facility does have a HIPAA requirement concern, it could be a one-way video where the fellowship is doing the presentation to the patients. Their videos could be turned off and our videos could be turned on. So I don't know if you want to, you know, address that or whatever, but it was pertinent. It came up in the chat.
Okay.
Those are kind of the things that I have been telling the facilities when I talk to them. But like I said, it's like I'm talking to someone that's put in charge of, like, you know, the standard H&I meeting that usually comes in there on that night. Like, they're the one that usually, you know, get the clients there and, you know, maintain the continuity of the meeting and make sure clients are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So those are the people that we're communicating with right now. So I was just kind of, like I said, I was just kind of curious if there was anything that was already put together. Otherwise, I feel that I could put together something that will work really well for them, explaining, you know, how we protect their clients. You know, like I said, I've explained it to all these people in detail. I just didn't know if there was anything already out there that we could be utilizing.
I want to talk real quick about HIPAA, because I do work in the medical field. And a couple of things. Number one, we as the organization coming in providing the service are not responsible for that. It is the organization that's actually getting paid for those services that would be responsible for that. So that would not be up to us to figure out, decide, have somebody sign a form or anything like that. And more importantly than that, the facility, and it doesn't matter what type it is, whether it's long-term or not, they already have them sign all sorts of paperwork. And, you know, like somebody was saying earlier, we're a pretty litigious society. So we don't need to get in the weeds. I don't believe that we need to get into the weeds of reading their paperwork to make sure they're covered, because ultimately they're already talking about telehealth, online, they have like, should have some pretty big clauses in there for, you know, phone call help, telehealth, things like that, that would cover them to have somebody like us come in. So we would be like a counselor or something, like when the person leaves or has a counselor call or something, we would fall under that same kind of thing. So they're really, we personally, or our organization coming in would not be held responsible to HIPAA. Does that make sense? It's the institution itself and not the organization.
I get what you're saying. We just need to meet, we need to meet their requirements that they set, that the government sets on them. Same as if we were, you know, like somebody getting vetted in the background to go into a prison, they have to get checked. So so the facility is going to set a standard based on however they function in the government. And
Correct.
then we just need to communicate, do we meet this? Or is the way that we're talking about covering what you guys have? And that's the conversation.
Like if I were meeting with an institution or facility, I wouldn't bring up HIPAA unless they did, because it's their
excellent point.
It's their responsibility, and we are not equipped. Imagine this on an individual level, right? Like I know what I'm talking about and understand the laws and stuff going into it, both as an administrator, but also as a patient. So imagine here we are trying to disseminate information to thousands of addicts across the country or world about HIPAA, and it's a conversation we don't need to have. If they raise it as an issue, then that would be something else. And then at that point, I would say, well, technically they're your patients, not ours. You're the ones that have to comply. Let us help you. What can we do to make sure that you are in compliance? Essentially is all that we would be doing.
Okay, so I know Brett's got something he wants to say, and then we're going to have to get moving on to the next topic. So go ahead, Brett. Thank you, Sam.
Look, I was just going to say, when we presented regarding the jails, you know, to the one that we're getting going there, one of the big topics for us was particularly virtual ticks boxes on this level. It doesn't you know, I think it's more positive. Someone can't bring something into an institution virtually. Someone can't, you know, all we are bringing in, and we were sort of saying that to the jails, you know, like all we are bringing in is the message. You know, we are simply bringing one thing. You know, the need for red tape gets less, not more, I think, when we go online. But like, I understand the situation, and with the jail, I think I covered it, but every prisoner needs an association check with every prisoner, you know, and that's no matter what facility they're at. And I understand the difficulty of videos in multiple institutions is where we hit that ground where, you know, we don't have those laws here. And, you know, I think it's already been answered really well as far as this would be a facilities call. You know what I mean? Like, we just simply offer them the choice of video or the choice of not video. You know, anyone doing a H&I is already willing to put their face to their recovery. You know, like, it's as simple as that. So, yeah, you know, but I don't think we have the same severity of the laws you guys have there. I think it's a bit more relaxed in Australia.
One other thing I would add is, you know, because you are talking about, you know, going into institutions and stuff, and, you know, maybe a lot of us don't necessarily think about what the facility is going through and what they have to do. As an organization, us, NA, what we can do is go in as a value add proposition, right? Like, you literally don't have to do anything at your facility, right? All you have to do is turn your thing on, and what we're doing is you don't have to worry about busing anyone anywhere. You've cut out that person. You don't have to worry about, you know, the controls like you were talking about, whether there were drugs or interactions or anything like that. You know, essentially it's a value add to the facility, especially in the times that we're in being under quarantine. We're providing a very safe way for access to outside recovery that they would have never had before. So I think if you present it as like a value add, that it makes their job super easy, we'll have a lot better chance of actually getting in and kind of like talking their language, because that's really what they're looking for. We're trying to carry the message, but their message is it easy for me? Can I maybe bill for this somehow and, you know, get this through that way? Whereas our primary purpose, of course, is getting the message. But if we understand what they're looking for, it does kind of make it a little easier, because this could be a tremendous value add for a facility right now.
Look, that's where I find also that we've already got literature aimed at professionals that explain all that stuff, you know, NA resource in the community, et cetera, those style pamphlets. And they are, as far as I'm aware, legally, we can use them as a PDF and attach them to emails when we approach, et cetera, with those pamphlets. I know not all the literature has that, but I find they speak very strongly with exactly what you're saying there, bro.